Hi there, my name's Simon Drew, and welcome to the revamped Practical Stoic Podcast. Now, I just want to start this introduction episode by saying thank you so much to every single one of you who have supported me and the podcast over the past couple of years since starting it in 2017. You know, for those of you who are new here, this podcast has over 240 episodes and almost 2 million downloads at the time of me recording this episode. And I say that not to boast, but I say that to show you the level of support that I've received, and I'm so grateful for that support because it's really gotten me to where I am now, where I'm actually jumping into this show 100% and putting everything into it to try and get to the bottom of this philosophy that is having such a resurgence in the world today. And so in this episode today, I just wanted to give you a brief backstory for where I've come from with the podcast, back in 2017 to now, why we're here at the stage where I'm revamping the entire show. And I also wanted to take you through what you can expect moving forward, what you can expect from the Practical Stoic Podcast. And before I get into that, I just wanted to say, if you do want to listen to any of the 240 episodes that I've recorded since 2017, you still can listen to them. And a lot of people have gotten so much value out of those episodes from around the world. But the reason why I wanted to take them down is firstly, just because I felt like I could do a better job, especially moving forward. I'm coming into this with a completely new mindset, coming into this looking at Stoicism through a different lens, and I'm really excited to be bringing a new flavor to this show. So I wanted to keep everything congruent, and so you can actually listen to those podcasts if you go and become a supporter on my Patreon page. So that would be genuinely one of the most helpful things that you can do. If you get a lot of value from this show, I would love for you to head over there. It's just patreon.com/Simon J.E. Drew. And I'll include the links in the show notes here as well. But if you support me, all you have to pay is even just $1 a month, and that will still get you access to all of those 240 episodes previously recorded. So I'd really highly encourage you to do that if you feel that this has given you enough value that would warrant you becoming a supporter. All right, so let's jump into it. And I thought that it would probably be helpful if I was to give you a bit of a background of who I am, just so that you know who the host is when you're listening to this podcast moving forward. But as I said at the start of the show, my name's Simon Drew. I'm an alignment coach. So basically I help people all around the world to come a little bit closer to being the person who they know they could and should be. And I'm seriously passionate about that. That's what I love to do. I'm also a musician. I'm also a fitness industry professional. I've been managing a gym in my hometown for the past year and a half, and I've actually left the gym now, which is a completely different story, which has led us to here, which I'm very excited about. But I'm also married to my beautiful wife, Jen. We live here on the Sunshine Coast in the beautiful Queensland of Australia. And just I'm so grateful that I get to do this podcast and to share the power and my passion for Stoicism with people all around the world. So thank you again for being here and listening to this. And, when I started this show back in 2017, I couldn't have anticipated the amount of support that I would receive over the next few years. And I really think that that's because Stoicism is just one of those philosophies that speaks to people in a really truthful, authentic way. Because the way I put it is like this. I believe that Stoicism is the original personal development philosophy because it's got so many great tools and tactics for us to use that can help us to be highly effective and highly functioning human beings, especially in the chaotic world that we live in today. And so that's why I'm so passionate about this philosophy, and it's why I'm so excited to be sharing it with as many people around the world as possible. And so really, how did we get to here? How do we get to the stage where, I'm in this podcast 100%, only doing the podcast, only doing my coaching and my music and that sort of stuff? It came down to a decision that I had to make recently. And that decision was I was either going to stay in my job as a gym manager and continue on that path, or I was going to leave that job and go 100% in to this podcast, which I see as my major mission in my life right now. And I had to make the choice. There was no other decision. I had to jump into this 100%, simply because I was seeing that people were getting the results. It was bringing me a lot of meaning, and I knew that if I was to jump into this 100%, I could probably make something of it, and I could do this all the time. And I love doing this. I love sharing information with people, knowledge and insights for how to reach new levels. And I love coaching people, which is what I do at the moment. And so I just thought, I've got to have time for this, or I've got to put all my time into the gym industry. And so here I am doing this podcast, coaching people, doing my music, just absolutely loving the journey that I'm on right now. And I'm so excited that you guys are here coming along with me, because the new attitude of the podcast is no longer just teaching you how to use this philosophy in your life. The new attitude of the podcast is action. How can you act in your life and use these principles taught by the great Stoics to make new improvements in your life and to reach new levels? So that's what we're doing from now on. So there's only a couple of other things that I want to go through in today's episode. Firstly, if you are new to the podcast, or if you're new to Stoicism, you're just getting into it, I'd really appreciate you starting with this episode like you have done so, and then make your way through episodes 1, 2, 3, all the way down. Do it in that order, because the next episode that I do is going to be a brief history of Stoicism, so that you'll have some historical context there. And then the next episode is going to be a rundown of the core tenets of Stoicism, the basic principles that they taught that can be helpful for us. And I just want to give you all of that context, because then we're going to move into a whole bunch of interviews with some of the smartest Stoic thinkers from around the world. People who have written books on the subject, people who have studied Stoicism their entire life. These are the best people to learn from in Stoicism, and they're all going to be on my show. So get very excited for that, because there's going to be some great interviews coming up. Now, I do have another announcement for you, and that is that this is not going to be the only podcast where you can hear me. So starting next week, I'm releasing the Practical Stoic Bytes podcast. And this is going to be a separate show that is purely 5-minute episodes every single day, that is just based around sharing a single quote from one of the great Stoic philosophers, and then sharing a few thoughts about how we can use the lessons in that quote to make our lives better today. So a lot of you have reached out to me over the past few years, and you've said, listen, we love those episodes where it's just a 5-minute episode, just a quote from the Stoics, and then a few thoughts about how we can, think about that throughout our day. And so these are the episodes for you guys who love those shorter 5-minute bursts of information, and you can kind of listen to it at the start of your day and set the intention for your day. So I'm really excited for that podcast, and I hope that you are too. And you'll be able to find that anywhere that you can find podcasts starting next week. Now, finally, I would just love to encourage you to become a part of the Practical Stoic community online. There are just so many places where you can follow me and what I'm doing, and where you can also, get some support from other people who are listening to the podcast who are also trying to learn about Stoicism. So if you jump on Facebook and search for the Practical Stoic Mastermind, then you'll find a great group of Stoics from all around the world who listen to this podcast and are trying to figure this philosophy out. So it's a really helpful place to be. I'd love to have you in that group. You can also follow me on Facebook at Simon J.E. Drew, and you can use that same tag for Instagram, Twitter. You can find me on LinkedIn. YouTube is another platform that I'm on, which I'm trying to get better at now. I've veered away from video in the past because it is quite difficult to do a good video, to put one together, but I will be learning and getting over that anxiety as we move along. But you can also find me on my website, which is simonjedrew.com. And if you go there, you can actually subscribe to my mailing list, which is the Practical Stoic Weekly, which is just a great newsletter that I'm going to be sending out every single week, which will give you updates on guests coming up on the podcast, give you insider information about my little community here. And it also give you some cool information, some great quotes from the Stoics, some thoughts from the ancient Stoics, and some thoughts from myself as well. So hopefully there'll be a lot of valuable information in there for you as well. And finally, again, if you head to patreon.com/Simon J.E. Drew, then you can support me there, and you can get access to all of the previous episodes that I've recorded of this podcast. So finally, I just want to thank you so much for listening. I want to thank you for being here and being the kind of person who is willing to spend the time learning, improving, growing, nourishing your mind. That's what I'm all about. And if you're all about that, then you're my kind of person. So thank you so much for being here. And I hope that you enjoy the rest of the episodes of the Practical Stoic Podcast. I'll talk to you soon.